Welcome to the deep dive. We're the place you come to really get under the hood of complex topics fast.
That's right. We cut through the clutter for you. And today, well, we're diving into team effectiveness. How can teams really click?
Yeah, exactly. We've got a couple of sources guiding us today. One's a paper, Modular and Interdependent Tasks in Team Orchestration.
hmm And the other is basically a set of notes we're just calling pasted text for now.
Yeah.
It outlines a specific approach.
So our mission today is to pull out the key ideas on structuring team tasks for better collaboration, better adaptability, too.
Absolutely. And a really central theme here seems to be this idea of modular and interdependent tasks.
We also need to talk about something called placebo pipes.
Oh, yes. Placebo pipes.
Mm,
Sounds a bit odd, maybe.
it really does. But stick with us. It seems pretty key to this whole framework. Okay, ready to jump in.
Let's do it. So first up, modular tasks. The paper really emphasizes this. Think of them as like smaller, self-contained work packages.
Right. Instead of one giant project looming over everyone.
Exactly. You break it down. Smaller chunks, more manageable.
And the paper links this to better work allocation, doesn't it? Like assigning based on skills.
Precisely. If someone's great at database stuff, they get the database module. Someone else nails the UI, they take that piece. It plays to strengths.
Makes sense. And it's not just about the initial assignment, is it? It's also about flexibility.
Oh, absolutely. That modularity makes managing things much easier. You can track progress on each little piece.
And if something needs to change or someone gets blocked?
Yeah, you can potentially reassign a module or adjust one without derailing the whole train. It's much more agile.
Okay, so we have these individual building blocks, modular tasks, but they don't exist in a vacuum, right?
Not at all. And
Yeah.
that brings us to the interdependent part. The tasks might be separate units, but they rely on each other.
Okay, so how does that work? This is where those placebo pipes come in.
This is where they come in.
Yeah.
Now, it's not magic, despite the name. The paper describes them as basically placeholders, temporary links.
Placeholders that connect the modules, even if one part isn't finished.
Exactly that. They show the dependency. So imagine you have a design task and an infrastructure task.
Okay.
The placebo pipe is like saying, okay, design team, we know you'll eventually need this specific thing from the infrastructure team.
Ah, so you define the connection point early, even if the final design spec isn't ready.
Right. The infrastructure team knows what they're aiming for. The paper gives an example, like explicitly stating, task X's output feeds into task Y's input.
So you're drawing the map before all the roads are paved, essentially.
That's a great way to put it. You see the connection. This output goes here, even if the output itself is still, well, being worked on.
And the point is visibility. Everyone sees how their piece fits into the bigger puzzle.
Exactly. It's about making those dependencies explicit and visible right from the start. It shows how individual work contributes to the larger goal. It's not about fake data, but about a real declared connection.
It fosters a sense of shared purpose, I imagine.
Definitely. It combats that feeling of working in silos.
Okay, this is interesting. Breaking work down, but then intentionally linking it with these placeholders.
Yeah.
How do you actually manage this day to day?
Good question. And that leads us nicely into our other source, the pasted text. It lays out a role and a process for a meta-team orchestrator.
Meta-team orchestrator. Sounds like a pretty important job title.
It seems to be. This person, according to the text, is actively coordinating everything, the roles, the tasks, the communication style.
And they're championing this whole placebo pipes idea and something called a meta-communicative style.
Yeah, meta-communication is basically like talking about how you're talking, being conscious of the team's process itself, and yes, promoting those placebo pipes.
So more than just tracking tasks, they're shaping the way the team works together.
That's the idea.
All right, let's walk through the steps the pasted text suggests for this orchestrator. First up, initiate kickoff meeting. Standard stuff?
A bit more specific, actually. It's not just, hello, here's the project. The text says this meeting needs to establish the core principles.
Like what?
Things like building team cohesion, getting everyone comfortable with roles, maybe shifting later. That's the dynamic role adaptation part.
Okay.
And explicitly introducing that idea of meta-communication, talking about the process. And crucially, explaining and getting buy-in for using these placebo pipes.
So setting the stage for how they'll operate. Got it. Step 2, assign roles based on strengths. This links back to modularity, yeah.
Absolutely. The orchestrator looks at everyone's expertise, their skills, and assigns roles accordingly.
The text had some creative examples, didn't it?
It did, like director of placebo pipes
Yeah.
or a task reality tester.
Seriously. The director of placebo pays.
Well, maybe not a formal title you put on a business card, but it represents a specific focus, right? Someone responsible for making sure those dependency links are clear.
Okay, I get it. Or the reality tester checks assumptions against the sources.
Exactly. It's about assigning specific responsibilities for maintaining this particular way of working.
Interesting. Okay, step 3 is define dynamic tasks. This must be where the rubber meets the road.
Pretty much. The orchestrator lays out the big goals, then breaks them down into tasks for the different roles.
And crucially, these tasks are modular and interdependent.
Right. And the text emphasizes that the orchestrator actively uses the placebo pipes to show the connections. The example was like, link task X's outcome to task Y's input.
So it's built right into the task definition. You don't just get assigned task X, you get assigned task X knowing its output is needed for task Y.
Precisely, making that dependency explicit. And yeah, the text points back to both our sources when discussing this.
Okay. Next step. Establish communication protocols. What's special here?
The focus on meta discussion. The text suggests a simple rule. If you're commenting on the process, not the task content, start your message with meta.
So, meta. I think we need a clearer way to track these dependencies. Something like that.
Exactly. It separates discussion about the work from discussion about how the work is being done. Keeps things organized.
Smart. Anything else on communication?
Yes. Mandating inline source citations in discussions about tasks. Referencing one or two, like in the source text itself.
Wow, okay. So really grounding the discussion in the agreed-upon framework. Keeps everyone on the same page, I suppose.
That seems to be the goal. Accountability and shared understanding.
Right. Step 5, schedule regular check-ins, daily syncs.
Yeah, short daily syncs, not long status meetings, but quick checks on progress, identifying blockers.
Standard agile stuff.
Mostly, but with that added layer. They talk about being ready to redistribute tasks or even pivot roles if needed. And they introduced this idea of a meta barometer.
A meta barometer? What on earth is that?
It sounds like a quick pulse check on the process itself. The example question was, how grounded are our placebo papes feeling?
Okay, so it's a slightly quirky way to ask, do we all feel like we understand the connections? Is the system working for us?
Pretty much. It's a check on that meta-level understanding and team alignment.
I kind of like that. It acknowledges the process isn't just set in stone. Last step. Implement feedback loops. Retrospectives.
Yep. After tasks or phases are done, hold retrospectives. What worked, what didn't? How can we refine the process or the roles?
Continuous improvement.
Exactly. And the text mentions celebrating aha moments related to meta-communication, like when talking about the process actually led to a breakthrough.
Nice. So it's a very self-aware, adaptive system. What's the actual output? What does the orchestrator produce?
The pasted text calls it a living workflow document. It's not static. It evolves.
And there was an example snippet, right? Meta Team Workflow V2.1.
Yeah, it showed sections for roles, like a compare, guiding discussions using the placebo pipes.
Guiding discussions. How?
Well, the example suggests they might say something like, let's route this dependency uncertainty to the backend API task for clarification, using the structure to direct conversation.
Okay, and there was the reality tester role too.
Right, ensuring things stay grounded in the sources. And then there's the tasks section.
Yeah, I remember implement user authentication assigned to someone called the security guardian.
And the key part, it noted a dependency on the placebo user data model. And it cited the sources again.
So that abstract placebo thing becomes a concrete dependency in the plan. Task A depends on placebo B.
Exactly. It's not just theory. It's built into the workflow. The authentication task is linked to this placeholder model, even while that model is perhaps still being fleshed out.
So this whole approach, the modular tasks, the explicit placebo pipe links, the orchestrator managing it, the living document, it all aims for clarity and adaptability.
That's the core idea. Alignment, adaptability, and that meta-awareness being conscious of how you're working. It grounds abstract concepts in really practical steps.
Okay, let's try and wrap this up then. Key takeaways.
Well, definitely the power of breaking things down modularity, but also, crucially, understanding and visualizing how those pieces connect interdependence.
And those placebo pipes are the mechanism for that visualization, right? Making dependencies clear, even early on.
Exactly. They're like the visible plumbing that shows how everything flows together, even before the water is fully running.
And then there's the structured approach of this meta team orchestrator, guiding the whole process with clear steps, communication rules, and that evolving workflow document.
Right. It's all designed to give teams more flexibility, more cohesion, really, to tackle complex goals without getting completely bogged down.
It helps manage the complexity, by making the structure and the process explicit.
Precisely. Better collaboration, better adaptation to change.
So here's a final thought for you, our listeners. Consider this idea of placebo pipes in your own work.
hmm Think about it.
Mm.
Could intentionally creating these kinds of placeholders, these temporary but explicit links between different parts of a project or different people's work,
Even before everything is fully defined.
right? Could doing that help foster a clearer view of the dependencies? Could it make your own workflow, your team's workflow, a bit more adaptable?
How could you use intentional temporary connections to improve collaboration and flexibility where you work? Something to think about.